Do you want some tips and tricks on how to create dark cinematic music? Well, if so, stay tuned because I'm going to show you how. All right, let's get right into it. Let's talk about creating cinematic, dark types of music. I mainly want to touch on more of the guidelines and rules around creating the music than jumping in and creating a bunch of music, because really the creation is up to you. But this is a great way to get started and to really understand what you're shooting for. Some of the things I'm going to recommend in here I learned from Clint Productions. I've got his t-shirt on right here. I make music, not excuses. I love that phrase. I'm going to link off in the description to his stuff as well. If you want to really take a deep dive into submitting your music for TV and film, that is the person you should listen to. He's been doing it for years, so I'm going to kind of refer to him for that. But let's hop right into the guidelines that you want to use to create, dramatic music. So when I talk about dramatic music, I'm mainly talking about two types for the purposes of this. There's the kind of slow, reflective, wistful, maybe the hero in a film has lost his loved one, that type of thing, where it's a really dramatic part in the movie or TV show where they're thinking and rebooting, that type of thing before the big finale. And then there's like movie trailer type of music, which is all about the build, right? Building that suspense, building that tension. General guidelines. So 1.5 to 2 minutes is a good place to start. Obviously, every rule is meant to be broken, but if you're creating a piece of music and you're trying to submit it for TV and film, that's a great sweet spot. Because normally they ask for like 8-second stingers, which might be the very end of your track. They ask for, especially in TV, like 30-second, 60-second versions of your songs as well. So that's a good length of time to keep your music. You don't want to make it too long and bore your audience. End with a bump on the root. So that means, obviously, you want to end the song, end your piece of music with either the root note or the root chord, the one chord. So it's a definite end. That really comes in handy when you are creating those 8-second stingers, because chances are it's just the very end and then the bump. But make sure you add that to the end. Section 1 and Section 2. So you want to have at least 2 distinctive sections to your music. You might be playing the same melody, but you want to switch the instruments up on which instrument is playing the melody, what's making the chords behind it, what's building the tension in the song. BPM, find a vibe. So before you even start creating music, have an emotion in mind. Like, what are you really shooting for? And try to find a piece of music that is similar to that. And then once you do, find the BPM of that, and then you have your beats per minute that you're going to use for your piece. Google chord progressions. If you Google right now cinematic dark music chord progressions, you're going to get 1 million hits. A lot of suggestions. So have those handy, and you can use a different one every time. Start with a simple repeating instrument. So that's especially for movie trailers. You want to keep it like 1 to 2 notes, maybe 3, and make it percussive and maybe staccato, something like that. And what's really cool about that is it's kind of like the glue that ties everything together. While all of these other chord changes and melodies and everything's happening around it, you have that one steady piece that keeps driving it and building that tension. On chords, if you wanted to start with chords, that would be really good for a slower piece where you're really trying to, like I said, like have that reflective, melancholy type of thing. Having the chords there, just the chord structure first, you can build a real simple piano melody over the top of it, and it works really well for that type of music. Continuously build. So no matter what type of music it is, you want to be building and adding instruments as you go, so the audience is never bored, the listener's never bored, and you are building to your ending. Use silence to build tension. As producers, a lot of times we forget that we can have silence in our music, and it's a really powerful tool. Especially if like you're using an instrument that has a lot of reverb, and it's like it sounds like it's about to just um, uh, have that type of hall reverb that goes on forever with a big tail, and then you just cut it off. Especially if it's build, 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 build. That silence it can create tension for your listener. That's why in movie theaters, especially when they marry that movie trailer with the action, when there's that bit of silence, you're very uncomfortable, and that's on purpose, and that's awesome. So don't forget about silence when you're creating your music. Have a surprise or two. So, movie trailer is a good example of that. Let's say it's building up to the end. You have two versions, right? You could either do bong, or you could do bong, right? So you have a little bit of silence, you have a little bit of surprise, like maybe what they're not expecting. So add some surprises to your music, some breaks, some things that the listener wouldn't expect. The genre of modern classical is really popular today. So using all of your classical instruments like, violins, strings, woodwinds, horns, piano, timpanis, percussive instruments, things like that. Adding that with the sound design, especially from like, kind of borrowed from EDM, like electronic dance music, using those types of synths and marrying that with the classical piece is really popular, especially for movies. And then finally, use dissonance. Dissonance is a lot of the time is two notes that are a half step apart. That's basically what dissonance is. Anything where a chord is creating tension because it's a little uncomfortable and you're waiting for that resolution. And switch up your voicings. Like if you're using a C minor triad chord, which is C, E flat, and G, you may want to put the E flat in the bass, but 2 octaves down, right? You don't want to just play simple triad chords for this type of music. So those are some general guidelines. I hope that helps. Some of the tools that you can use, just Google cinematic sound packs. They're everywhere. There's free ones everywhere. So you can start with that. Spitfire Labs, free. Their free stuff is amazing. Their paid stuff is amazing, but the free stuff, I use soft piano, scary strings, and strings probably in 90% of any dark cinematic music I do. Ample Guitar M Lite 2 is a great acoustic guitar, so especially for those reflective, dramatic type tracks, it's good for that. If you need a good, simple acoustic guitar. Some of the paid tools that I use is Contact 6, the sound libraries Rise and Hit. Oh man, Rise and Hit. That's good for hip hop, pop, anything. It's basically live recorded, musicians in a studio, and they have all of these different variations using the same instruments, rhythmic variations, builds, bringing in different instruments, using some of those modern classical things I was talking about. Action strikes are your big drums. Winter strings, really good suspenseful, scary strings that you can use for certain types of tracks. The orchestra library has every instrument in a classical orchestra. And then Evolution has some fire guitars. Fire guitars for any type of music. Rock Standard and Infinity are a couple of those. I use Splice. I have the $20 subscription where you have access to Beatmaker and Astra. Beatmaker has some cinematic drums you can download as well. Astra has some great synths with a little bit of white noise, like lo-fi stuff. I find myself using that a lot. And obviously they have all of the samples and drum packs that Splice has. Waves Rhapsody is the best piano that I found that sounds real and is flexible, where you can tune, you can put the soft pedal on, you can tune the format to it, and You can add more microphones, so the samples that it's using is like it's recorded with 1 microphone, 2 microphones, 3 microphones, far, near, all of those types of things. Just really flexible, and it sounds like a genuine piano. And then finally, Omnisphere. Omnisphere has a million transition effects and instruments with like what do you call them? Like ambiance, like those types of instruments. Good like booms and suspenseful. I don't know, like you're walking into the tomb of a dead Egyptian, and what would that sound like? Omnisphere has it, if that makes sense. So, and great choir sounds in Omnisphere. They have boys choir, classical choir, jazz pop, all those types of things. Really real sounding voices. Okay, so those are some of the tools you can use. And that's it for this portion of it. So let me bring up Fruity Loops real quick. I just wanted to show you a quick example of what I was talking about. And let me put my headphones on with a short percussive. Let's say I was making a movie trailer. This is something like I would start with. Mostly one note and percussive, right? The next thing you'd want to add is a bass note of some kind. You can choose a cello. Oh, what sound am I using? That's probably important. Let me show you real quick. So for this one, let me bring up the channel rack. All 3 of these instruments are labs. So I'm using labs, Spitfire Labs short strings here. So they have ensemble long and short. Long is a great like single instrument sound. It's really good for cellos. Short, and then there's piano as well, which I'll show you in a minute. But these are short strings. Okay. Now, let's add the cello. Right. With just kind of holding that one note, you can really get creative with the bass note and then build your chords on top of that. So let's add some chords using piano. Let me talk about that for a minute. So in the piano, I have the same bass as the cello. And then as I built the chords, I tried to choose notes that weren't typical, if that makes sense. You kind of have to have an ear for music, but I'll show you an example of dissonance. See this B note down here, and then you have A sharp up here. So those notes are actually a half step apart, and that's your dissonance. I just put the B on the bottom and the A at the top. And I have the dissonance on all these 3 chords, because you can see here there's a B in the bass and an A sharp at the top. Great way to make it sound dark and dramatic. So I hope this demonstration's been helpful to you. I hope it helps you create some pretty awesome cinematic dark music. If you have any, I'd love it if you posted it in the comments. I'd love to check it out. I hope this has been helpful to you. If you like this video, like, subscribe, tell your friends, all of that, and I'll see you in the next video.